Welcome back. This is chapter 4 from the diary of Anne Frank, written by Anne Frank. And now I'm going to explain this chapter to you. So here we go. Writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me. The author says that writing a diary, maintaining a diary is a really unique kind of experience for her. Not only because I've never written anything before, but also because it seems to me that later on neither I nor anyone else will be interested in the musings of a 13-year-old schoolgirl, and she speaks these things on two accounts. She has 2 points to believe so. First is, since it was her first writing, it was her first adventure in this direction, and secondly, since she was not mature, she was just a teen at that time, so people would not be interested in reading the steps of a 13-year-old schoolgirl, because people believe that a teen cannot do any kind of serious writing. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I feel like writing, and I have an even greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. But she says, well, it doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter because I feel like writing. I have an urge to write from inside, so I must write, and she must also write because there is a need for her to get certain things off her heart, and so she must start writing. So it was a compulsion for her as well. Paper has more patience than people. I thought of this saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless, wondering whether to stay in or go out. Okay, so one of those days, I wonder, she was feeling dejected, she was upset, and she was sitting in her room with her chin in her hand and just wondering, just thinking whether to stay in or to go out and play outside. So she was just between two thoughts. Say there was a dilemma in her mind what to do, and then she thought of the books. She thought of a popular saying which said, paper has more patience than people. That is, books have more patience than we human beings have, because they never complain, they never say, or they never say appeal other people around to carry them away to a different place, since they have been there for a long time. So they have more patience. I finally stayed where I was brooding. Yes, paper does have more patience. And finally she decided to stay back there at her place, only brooding, thinking, contemplating the idea that, yes, paper indeed have more patience. Books indeed have more patience. And since that is, they can remain at a place unruffled, undisturbed, untouched, and they never complain. So, and since I'm not planning to let anyone else read this stiff-backed notebook, grandly referred to as diary, and since she was not planning, she was not having any kind of intention to let anyone else touch her stiff-backed, hardcover notebook, grandly referred to as diary, which she calls diary, unless I should ever find a real friend. So she has no intention to allow anyone else to touch her a notebook which she called diary, since, or say, unless she found a real friend. It probably won't make a bit of difference, and it won't make a difference whether she found a real friend or not. If she found a real friend, only then the pages of the diary would be turned, otherwise it would remain unruffled, undisturbed, untouched. Now, I'm back to the point that prompted me to keep a diary in the first place. I don't have a friend. So now she comes back to the main point. That is why she was prompted, or what encouraged her to keep a diary in the very first instance. I do not have a friend, and that particular point is that she doesn't have a friend. She's not having a friend, and that's why she has to share her feelings, her thoughts, her ideas to this diary. And one that you are able to share your thoughts and ideas to is your true friend, and she considers this diary a true friend. Let me put it more clearly. Since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world, so she says that let me make it more clear to everyone, because if I say that I don't have a friend, people will not believe it. The world will not believe that a 13-year-old girl, a teen, is without her friends. No one is going to believe. And I'm not. And it's not the case that she's not having a friend. I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister. She says that, well, she has parents, she has a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends, and there are about 30 people about her whom she can easily call friends. I have a family, loving aunts, and a good home. She has everything. She has a family, loving aunts, and a good home. She has everything in her life. No, on the surface, I seem to have everything. No, but no, you are not. You haven't got all the facts clear. On the surface, I seem to have everything. On the surface, on the ground, it seems that yes, the author is having everything except my one true friend, but she is missing that one true friend. All I think about when I'm with friends is having a good time. I can bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary everyday things. So he says that, well, when I'm with the friends, I can think only of having good time. That is, with friends, you're always very happy, always very excited. You have the best time with your friends only. I cannot bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary everyday things. And here she cannot discuss anything. She cannot share her feelings, her emotions with her friends, but only say a day-to-day, everyday things. She can only discuss only day-to-day or everyday, ordinary things. We don't seem to be able to get any closer, and that's the problem. And they cannot get any closer. They cannot open their hearts. They cannot discuss their feelings, their emotions, and that's the problem. Maybe it's my fault that we don't confide in each other, and maybe she says that she blames herself. She says that maybe it's my fault only that I cannot, or we cannot confide in each other. We cannot share our secrets, our emotions, and all. In any case, that's just how things are, and unfortunately, they are not liable to change. And she says that, well, in any case, that's just how things are. That's how the things are, and unfortunately, they are not liable to change, and unfortunately, they are not going to change in any way. This is why I started the diary, and that's why she started writing a diary. To enhance the image of this long awaited friend in my imagination, to enrich the image, to improve the image of this long awaited friend in her imagination, or to improve the image of this friend of her in her imagination. I don't want to jot down the facts in this diary. She doesn't want to put down the facts in the diary the way most people would do. Most people just put down the facts in the diary. But she says that she was not going to do in that way. But I want the diary to be my friend, and I'm going to call this friend Kitty. And she says that, no, I'm not going to put facts in this diary, but it's going to be my friend, and say my friend, of course, the best friend, say, and I'm going to call this friend Kitty, and she is going to call this friend Kitty. She named this friend, this diary, Kitty, and she says that she would share her emotions, her feelings, and she will not only put down the facts. So since no one would understand a word of my stories of Kitty if I were to plunge right in, I'd better provide a brief sketch of my life, much as I dislike doing so. So the author says here that if she plunges, if she jumps right in, if she starts her stories abruptly, all of a sudden, then people will not able to understand her stories. People wouldn't be able to say understand the psychology or the thought behind doing a particular thing. So she should rather start by giving a brief account of her past, which she says she dislikes. She hates giving detail, or she dislikes speaking of her past or speaking of the past events. My father, the most adorable father I've ever seen, didn't marry my mother until he was 36 and she was 25. So here she speaks of her family, and she says that her father had been the most adorable, most loving and caring father she had ever seen. And he didn't marry her mother before he was 36. That is when the parents married. Their parents married. At that time, father was 36 and mother was 25 years of age. My sister, Margot, was born in Frankfurt in Germany in 1926, and the couple had their first baby in the year 1926 when her sister Margot was born in Frankfurt in Germany. The couple or the family lived there in Germany, and there they had their first baby in the year 1926. She was named Margot. I was born on 12 June 1929, and the second child, was born in 1929, 3 years later, and she was born on 12 June 1929, and she was named Anne. So the author speaks here of the two sisters. First, her elder sister Margot, and then she speaks of herself and when they were born. I lived in Frankfurt until I was 4, and the family continued to live there in Frankfurt, Germany, until she was 4 years of age. That is, they lived there until 1933. My father immigrated to Holland in 1933, and from there father moved out of the country and settled there in Holland in 1933. My mother, Edith Hollander Frank, went with him to Holland in September, and the parents moved to Holland in the year 1933, and the month was September. While Margot and I were sent to Aachen to stay with our grandmother, and while the parents moved to Holland, the sisters, that is the daughters, were sent to Aachen to their grandmother. Margot went to Holland in December, and Margaret, her older sister, joined the parents in the month of December, same year, I followed in February, when I was planned down on the table as a birthday present for Margot, and then the author to join the family there in Holland in the next year, that is 1934, in the month of February, when she was casually put down, or say she was presented there as a birthday gift to her sister Margot. Started right away at the Montessori nursery school, and there in Holland she went straight to the school. The same year she joined a Montessori nursery school. I stayed there until I was 6, and she continued to receive her education there in the same school until she was 6 years of age, at which time I started in the first form, and at that age she was in the first form, that is in first standard. In the sixth form, my teacher was Mrs. Cooper's, the headmistress, and when she was shifted to some other school, and there she continued to study till she was in the sixth. She reached in the sixth standard, and in the sixth standard or sixth form, her teacher was Mrs. Cooper's. Mrs. Cooper's was a class teacher. She was also the headmistress of the school. At the end of the year, we were both in tears, and we said a heartbreaking farewell that year. At the end of the year, that is at the end of sixth, class sixth, they had to get separated from each other. She had to move out of the school and had to take admissions to some other school. So at the end of the year, it was a painful separation for both the teacher and the student. Both of them broke down in tears. In the summer of 1941, Grandma fell ill and had to have an operation. That is, in the year 1941, during summers, her grandma fell ill and she had to be operated. So my birthday passed with little celebration, so they can have a big celebration of her birthday. Grandma died in January 1942. Grandmother couldn't survive long after the operation and died the very next year in 42, in the month of January, at the beginning of the year only. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. No one knows how dearly she misses her, how dearly she missed her grandmother, and how she still loved her. This birthday celebration in 1942 was intended to make up for the other, and Grandma's candle was lit along with the rest. And this celebration of 42 went off, passed off with little celebration as well. 41 saw little celebration, 42 too saw very little celebration. And here they try to make up for the family members who were dead. And here Grandma's candle was lit along with the rest of the souls from the family who had left this world, left this earth. The four of us are still doing well, and that brings me to present date of 20th June 1942. And here she says that four of us, all the four members of the family, parents, two parents and two sisters, are doing well. They are doing very well, and that brings her to the present date of 20th June 1942. And this brings her to this date, this current date, which was 20th June 1942. That is, she started making her entry on 20th June 1942, and the solemn dedication of my diary, and that was the day when she introduced her diary. So started writing her diary, dedicated, that is, introduced her diary. Dearest Kitty, Saturday, 20th June 1942. That is, it was Saturday. The date was 20th June and the year was 1942 when the author started making her entry into her diary. She refers the diary as Kitty. Now, let's see what happens here. What's said here? Our entire class is quaking in its boots. That is, the entire class is nervous today. The reason, of course, is the forthcoming meeting in which the teachers decide who will move up to the next form and who will be kept back. So the reason why they are nervous is the fact that there is going to be the meeting of the teachers, and it's going to take place in a day or two, and then there in that meeting the teachers are going to decide as who will be promoted to the next class and who will be retained. And that's why the entire class is nervous. Half the class is making bets, and about half the class is making bets is gambling. Half the class is gambling, putting their money and other valuables at stake and claiming that a certain thing is going to happen. GN and I laugh out so silly at the two boys behind us, CN and Jax, who have staked their entire holiday savings on their bait. Two boys, that is CN and Jax, these were sitting behind Ota and her friend, and they had put their entire holiday savings on their bed. Here, by this bed, they claim that certain thing is going to happen, and the other claims on the contrary, and that's why there is this bait, and their bait make these two girls laugh out loud, or their bait make these two girls go mad in laughter, or say they go mad with laughter. from morning to night. It's you are going to pass? No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. So entire day from morning till night, they were just claiming one or the other, one thing or the other. One is saying you are going to pass. The other is saying no, I'm not. And upon these points only, they have their bets. They have put their money at stake. Even G's pleading glances and my angry outbursts can't calm them down. Even G's requestful and begging look or glance at them beside author's angry outburst, angry reaction couldn't stop them from going on making their claims. If you ask me, there are so many dummies that about a quarter of the class should be kept back. Now the author says, if you take my view, my opinion, a quarter of the class is idiot and they should be kept back. But teachers are the most unpredictable creatures on earth. But she claims that teachers are the most unpredictable creatures. You cannot predict what the teachers are going to do. I'm not so worried about my girlfriends and myself will make it. Now the author says that I'm not concerned, I'm not bothered, I'm not worried about my girlfriends, that is my friends, and myself, my own, because we believe we are going to make it, we're going to pass, we're going to get the promotion to the next class. The only subject I am not sure about is maths. The only subject she had a little doubt is maths. Anyway, all we can do is wait, and she says anyway, all that they can do in such situation is wait. Until then, we keep telling each other not to lose heart, and until the results are published, they keep on saying each other not to lose heart. That is, they keep on motivating, encouraging each other. I get along pretty well with all my teachers. The author claims here that her relations with all the teachers is good. There are 9 of them, 7 men and 2 women. In total, there are 9 teachers in school. Out of these 9 teachers, 7 are men and 2 are women. 7 male teachers and 2 female teachers. Mr. Keesing, the old fogey who teaches maths, was annoyed with me for ages. And this maths teacher was annoyed with Ain for ages, for a very long period of time, because I talked so much, because the author had a habit of talking too much. She was talkative. After several warnings, he assigned me extra homework. He gave a lot of warnings to the author, but as she did not desist from this habit, she did not stop talking, so the teacher assigned her an extra homework, given extra homework to her, an essay on the subject, a chatterbox. So he gave her an essay to write, and the topic was a chatterbox. A chatterbox, what can you write about that? A chatterbox was the topic, and it's very difficult to write. It's such a topic that is very difficult to write on. I'd worry about that later, I decided. I jotted down the title in my notebook, tucked it in my bag, and tried to keep quiet. So the thing she did was she noted down the topic and then tucked the notebook in her bag before she worried about it. She said, I will worry about it later. I have time to worry about it, think about it, but right now I need to note down. And then after noting down, she kept the notebook very safely in the bag. That evening, after I'd finished the rest of my homework, the note about the essay caught my eye. Okay, that evening, as the author had finished the rest of her homework, her eyes went to the notebook in which there was a note on essay writing. I began thinking about the subject while chewing the tip of my fountain pen, and she began to think now. She began to bother herself now as what to write on this topic, and as she was thinking on it, about it, she was nervously chewing the tip of the fountain pen. Anyone would ramble on and leave big spaces between the words. Anyone can ramble, write or say anything, write anything in the notebook and leave big spaces and fill pages. So that's quite easy to do. But the trick was to come up with convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. But here the trick was, the art was to write something convincing. That is, she says that one can easily write about the topic, this or that, unnecessary things and related things, but the trick was, art was to come up with some convincing idea, some convincing thought. I wrote the 3 pages Mr. Keesing had assigned me. The teacher had asked her to write 3 pages of this essay, so she finished it. I argued that talking is a student's trait and that I would do my best to keep it under control. She argued here that talking is a student's trait. It's a student's character, feature, or nature, and that she would try her best to keep it under control, but that I would never be able to cure myself of the habit, since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more. So she claimed here that she couldn't stop talking because it was in her blood. The same habit found its reflection in her mother, and she too talked as much as the author did, if not more. Maybe that she didn't talk more than her, but she indeed talked as much as the author did. So she was helpless. She claimed here that she was helpless in this matter, and that there is not much you can do about inherited traits. And since it was inherited, since it was in the blood, since it was genetical, so you cannot do much about this habit. You cannot do much about this quality of hers. And Mr. Keesing had a good laugh at my arguments, but when I proceeded to talk my way through the next lesson, he assigned me a second essay. Mr. Keesing found her arguments quite strong, quite good, quite logical, so he had a good laugh at her logic, her writing. When But when I proceeded to talk my way through the next lesson, but the moment she started talking and she talked for a while and then continued to talk to the second level, the teacher couldn't control his irritation and he punished her again and assigned her a second essay. This time it was supposed to be on an incorrigible chatterbox, and this time the topic given to her was an incorrigible chatterbox. That is, a chatterbox, a talkative person who cannot be corrected, who cannot be mended, or who cannot mend his habit. I handed it in, and Mr. Keesing had nothing to complain about for 2 whole lessons. Next day, she produced her essay. He read it. He found it equally good this time. And he had nothing to complain to her, and she continued. Since it was inborn, she couldn't stop herself from talking, so she kept on talking for 2 whole periods. However, during the 3rd lesson, it finally had enough. So, however, he couldn't control again himself because that was quite a big irritation. She continued to talk for 2 periods. In the 3rd period, he could not control himself, and again, he had to punish. He punished her for the 3rd time. Ain Frank, as punishment for talking in class, write an essay entitled Quack, 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 said Mistress Chatterbox. So this title, Quack, 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 said Mr. Chatterbox, was her next essay. The class roared. I had to laugh too. The class roared in laughter, and the author had to laugh as well, because that was such a funny topic, such a funny essay to write on. Though I nearly exhausted my ingenuity on the topic of chatterboxes, though she had exhausted, she had consumed all her creative ideas on the topic chatterbox, and since she was given it for the 3rd time, so her head was now, say, empty of any idea. It was not having any idea, a new idea on the same topic. It was time to come up with something else. She thought it was time to come up with something very special. Not something original, obviously, something original at the same time. My friend, Sane, who's good at poetry, offered to help me write the essay from beginning to end in verse, and I jumped for joy. Her friend San there, who was also reading in the same class, he offered her help and offered to write the entire poem from the beginning till end in the verse form, in the form of a poem. And she was quite excited about it. She was so excited that she almost jumped out of joy. Mr. Keesing was trying to play a joke on me with this ridiculous subject, but I'd make sure the joke was on him. She thought that Mr. Keesing tried to play a joke he made fun of her with this subject, with this topic, but she decided to make a fun of him with the same topic. That is, she took this opportunity to humiliate him with the same topic. I finished my poem and it was beautiful. She finished her poem. It was possibly dictated by him or written by him, but then she had to copy it down. So she finished her work, and it was a nice poem. It was about a mother duck and a father swan with 3 baby ducklings. The poem was about mother duck and father swan and their 3 baby ducklings who were beaten to death by the father because they quacked too much. Here, these 3 ducklings were beaten to death. They were killed by father swan because they talked a lot, because they quacked a lot. Luckily, Mr. Keesing took the joke the right way, and she was fortunate that he didn't take it otherwise. He took it in the right spirit. He read the poem to the class, adding his own comments and to several other classes as well. He read the poem written by the author to the same class. Then he also read it out to some other classes, but with some comments that he added from his own side. That is, after making some adjustment in the poem, he read it to a lot of classes in school. Since then, I've been allowed to talk and haven't been assigned any extra homework. And on that day, the teacher realized that she was a genius. She had a creativity. She has a creative mind. And since then, he stopped punishing her, and she was allowed to talk in the class. On the contrary, Mr. Keesing's always making jokes these days. On the hindsight, Mr. Keesing was always found making jokes these days. Yours ain't. And with this, she concluded writing her diary for the day. And with this, we have also come to the end of this chapter. Thank you.